Godzilla has had a lot of enemies in his time. King Kong, Ghidorah, Mothra, and dozens of others throughout the monster's history. But do you know which monster was Godzilla's first opponent? I'll give you guys some time to comment your answers down below and I'll come back to it in a second. If you like Godzilla videos and want more of them, make sure to stomp that subscribe button and hit the bell to let us know. Ready for the answer of who was Godzilla's first kaiju enemy? If you guessed Anguirus, well done. In Godzilla's second film, Godzilla Raids Again, the G-Man faced off against fan favorite Anguirus. The battle was intense and brutal, and started the chain reaction that led to Godzilla fighting another monster in almost all of his movies ever since. After Raids Again, Godzilla took on King Kong in his first ever franchise crossover battle. Since Kong wasn't owned by Toho, this was a pretty big deal in the film world, and was one of the first ever situations in which two different companies worked together to attempt to create something special for audiences around the world. Next, he took on Mothra in 1964's Godzilla vs. Mothra. But many of us don't know that there was originally supposed to be another movie before this, which would have had the King of the Monsters taking on another famous cinema icon. Who this monster is and what the movie was supposed to be will be disclosed in this video, so make sure and stay tuned. Residents of Dangerville, this is Jacob, and let's get to it. The year was 1963, and Toho was biting at the bit to have their newly famous monster superstar take on another opponent who could rival Godzilla in a way similar to what Kong did in their prior film. So to do this, Toho enlisted the help of writer Kora Mabuchi to create a screenplay for the movie. The story he threw together was said to have taken inspiration from another previously cancelled production, coming from Godzilla's previous opponent's line of movies, King Kong. Titled King Kong vs. Prometheus. This unmade story would have had the big ape face off against an undead monster that was created using the body parts of Africa's mightiest animals. A crazy concept for sure, and even though that movie never came to be, perhaps Toho could take the script and do something with it, or so they thought. The story that would have been derived from this cancelled Kong movie and from the mind of Mabuchi would have gone something like this. James Bowen, a scientist, along with the help of some others, were attempting to gather information by studying the effects of radiation on survivors from the Hiroshima bombing. During this study, Brown would have eventually came in contact with a young boy who was aimlessly wandering the streets of the city. After some research and studying, it's learned that the boy is not any ordinary boy, but in fact, this was a monster who was brought to life when the atomic bomb's radiation mutated a dissected heart into this boy-like entity. This monster would go on to become the one and only Frankenstein monster. Yep, the iconic undead creation that has been around for longer than both Godzilla and Kong. And since the last movie that featured an American monster taking on Godzilla was such a massive hit, Toho believed that Frankenstein and the character's rich history would be enough to yet again have another huge success on their hands. Now if you think this idea sounds crazy, well, that's because it was. And it gets crazier, so stick around. Now it wouldn't take long for the boy Frankenstein to start to show the signs of the monster hidden inside. Growing rapidly and gaining an even larger appetite had forced the creature to start to consume local livestock. Worried that its size would continue to grow, and that it would soon turn its attention to mankind, the JSDF, otherwise known as Japan's Self-Defense Force, were quickly becoming uneasy about the situation. This is where Godzilla comes roaring into the picture. But it's also where some of the script's issues begin to surface, since Godzilla didn't have a proper send-off in his first fight with King Kong, with him just disappearing into the ocean without being seen. Toho didn't know how to properly introduce the monster this next time around. Scriptwriter Mabuchi proposed that Godzilla simply be found once again frozen at sea. The reasoning behind this idea was that since we knew Godzilla had fell into the ocean during his fight with Kong, that it could have allowed Godzilla to be found again randomly at sea anywhere. Although I guess he never really thought of a good reason for him to be frozen there again. Going back to the story, the JSDF would then break Godzilla free in the hopes that he would rush to Japan and take down the newly created Frankenstein threat, which also just added more problems to the script. Why would Japan set loose a nuclear bomb on legs just to kill a lumbering undead brute with half a brain and no real superpowers? which when combined with the whole frozen in ice thing was the eventual nail in the coffin for this idea as a movie. But for now, let's finish what is known of the story. Once Godzilla was lured to Japan, he would do what he does best: destroy it. Eventually, he would have pinpointed his focus on one of the female lead characters of the movie, and this is when the Frankenstein monster would have showed that it had a softer side actually. Rushing to the woman's aid, Frankie here would have given Godzilla a true fight, using guerrilla tactics similar to how Kong did in Godzilla vs. Kong. See what I did there? And this strategy apparently would have worked. Real quick though, big shout out to Bill Couture for making us this amazing custom art for this video. As Godzilla and Frankenstein's battle raged on, the earth would begin to rumble due to a series of volcanic fissures. Suddenly, the ground would give out beneath Frankenstein's feet, and the creature would have fell to its death, being swallowed by the lava below. Another fissure would unleash a flood powerful enough to crash into Godzilla and throw him violently downstream to never be seen again in this story, his fate completely unknown. And that's where the story ends. Godzilla vs. Frankenstein was an idea that embodied Toho's plans at that time. Have Godzilla take on another famous monster in the hopes of connecting with the most fans possible and well making them a lot of money. And while this movie never came to be, it led into Godzilla vs. Mothra and had a lot of ideas from its script brought over into a future movie, Frankenstein vs. Baragon, which was used for a lot of the clips in this video. It goes to show that the concept of Godzilla vs. Frankenstein was potentially a successful idea, but that lazy writing can get you in a heap of trouble, a lesson that's very evident in today's film and TV industry. If this movie's script would have had a better introduction for Godzilla, and reason behind him coming to fight the Frankenstein monster, then it probably would have actually been made. But hey, it is what it is. So Godzilla and Kong are actually set to face off against some more famous American characters, with the first issue already being out. Godzilla vs. Kong vs. the Justice League, that's still a terrible title, anyway, has recently released its first issue. I've yet to get to look at it, but it seems like that from those who have, that it's a good time, so I plan on making a ton of videos once that whole series is released, because, well, you know, if we have to wait months to get the next issue, it's just going to make content harder and less, reliable for you guys to get it consistently. So, just subscribe and become a resident of Dangerville if you haven't already, and when that's all done, I'll make sure to start making some videos on it. So anyway, guys, happy Halloween. Later.